hopefully this is going to be a short one. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of DL Live. This is a daily stream in which we talk about game design. I got a lot of topics lined up. Some are a bit long, so I have to do some preparation for, and some are short, like this one, so hopefully we can get this one done in 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. But my name is Richard Terrell. I go by Kirby Kid. My Twitter is @KirbyKid, like that. And we've been doing this for a while. We are design oriented. We have a website, we got a blog, a Discord, a stream, obviously, and we put these videos up on our YouTube channel. You can follow us at Twitter, @DesignOriented, and our Discord. It's where we talk about this stuff on the regular, as well as many other things. So if you really do like talking about game design and tackling a lot of different topics and really thinking deeply about it, I encourage you to join us there. But otherwise, today's topic is... where is it? Here we go, zapping. So, where is it? Get out of here. No, I don't want to go to the label. Okay. So, I was just doing some research today, looking at a bunch of different games, and I was actually watching this Pikmin 3 speed run, which I'll show you a little bit later. But in the speed run, Pikmin 3 is a game, third in the series, and you can control 3 characters. And when you're playing single player, and even sometimes when you're playing multiplayer, you can hit a button and switch back and forth between the 3 characters. This allows the game to never have a dull moment, so to speak. If you're waiting for something to happen with one character, you switch to another. If you start something with one character, you can switch to another and have something else start, and both things will go at the same time. It's really just an interesting way to get more things done and layer up the gameplay challenges. So we're going to consider zapping and look at a couple of different examples and consider what its implications are for level design. So one of the first games that I remember zapping ever being a part of is Resident Evil 0, and this is a game I never beat because my GameCube save file got corrupted, and that was the kind of game I was like sort of really struggling to get through anyway. So right when I lost my file, I'm like, I'm done with this. But the game's kind of grueling, and playing 2 Resident Evil games at the same time is not easy. So I'll give you a little sneak peek here what it looks like. So this is a video. You can see down below some credits there. But this is what it looks like. You're running around with this character named Billy, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to get to this area here. And that's a classic Resident Evil style slow door load opening. And then when Billy gets inside, it's like, you know what? It's time for my friend, Zap, Rebecca. And now Rebecca's in a completely different part of the entire mansion, right? And she's doing her own thing. And now they're both together in the same part of the mansion. I don't know if that was I don't think that was a speedrunning glitch. But now they're in the same place. So obviously your 2 characters can see each other and kind of interact. When they're in the same area, I think in this game you can have them follow each other so that you stick together. Or otherwise you can split up. When they split up and one of the characters is getting attacked, you get a radio distress call. And then like, oh, I better zap back over and make sure they don't get eaten by a zombie, that kind of a thing. Maybe we'll see some of that coming up here. I haven't really watched this. I just remember playing it. That's a lot of zombies. Aim for that head. The gameplay in this is so interesting. It's so interesting, like high, mid, low, chance to miss or whatever, chance to blow off their heads. Kind of like very RPG-like, even though you look like you're playing in an action game in real space. But surprisingly enough, Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 retain a lot of the same basic controls and mechanics design, but then make it a full-fledged action game, and it keeps it a lot of the same sort of feel and results, which is one of the coolest parts about talking about abstractions, right? Like, you can replace simulated actions with dice rolls or other things to try to get the same result, and sometimes you feel like that's cheapening it and takes away from the complexity and depth, but other times you're like, I think it actually hit that exact feeling that they were going for right in the head. And as you can see here, Rebecca is now separated from Billy. Because it's a walkthrough, I don't think they're going to get in trouble, so I don't think you're going to hear any radio chit-chat as one person's in trouble, but that's the basic idea of zapping right there. Let's go back over here. Thank you, Resident Evil 0. So let's look at the Pikmin example. This player is speedrunning the game in 1 hour and 28 minutes, not even 1 hour and 30. And it gets to this point where there's this boss battle. So he goes in here. Let's see if we can get some sound. Oh, this is the play, by the way. It's the credits. And then zaps back to this character, waiting on the outside, gathers some Pikmin up, zaps back to the battle, because I don't even know how the game calculates both things happening. Does a neat maneuver, zaps back to Brittany, and just like there's a distress call. I need orders. Whatever that means. And then takes care of business here. I think he's doing a pretty clever trick where his Pikmin over in the boss battle aren't dying because he did something like, I don't know. Like it's off screen, so like I don't know what happened, but there they are. They're the Pikmin. Does it again, locks arm to the like mouth, attacks, and then zaps back to the other character. Right, so the gameplay just kind of carries on. And then back to the gameplay, like, oh, why are the Pikmin scattered there? Who knows? He zapped away and now the world may never know. I don't even think that behavior actually happens quite like that if you just stay in one perspective. But hey, he's exploiting something for the benefit of the speedrun. But for our purposes, we're considering what are the pros and cons of zapping in a game like this. By the way, the challenge mode for Pikmin, so good. Playing that co-op, learning how to make efficient all the different paths, coordinating with your friends and brothers, and it's just so much fun. It does it again, attacks and zaps back. There's got to be some kind of technique. Sherbet. So that was just an interesting example. I got one more example of Pikmin. It's the second link here. Let's see if I can go to it. And let that load up for a second. Am I running out of RAM? So yeah, zapping over to Brittany, zapping back over with these flying Pikmin. Attacks immediately after he grabs a few Pikmin. So this is kind of like how zapping was supposed to be. You start some actions over here, go around over here. That's so interesting how you just distracted him by throwing Pikmin off to the side and then attacks his eyeballs. And then makes those Pikmin go do stuff over there, comes back over here, zaps it back over to this character with the rocks and Brittany in the water, and yeah, Alf, Brittany, and what's his name? Charlie? Yeah. And as you can see, like the action never stops once you sort of get a handle for which one of your characters is where and what Pikmin they have and all these other things, and you can see everything kind of coordinated and coming together here, which is kind of neat. So that's another sort of more practical example of zapping. And Pikmin 3 is the kind of game where they give you like an interesting detailed replay, a ability to pause at any time and pan over the map from a top-down view to see everything, the ability to obviously zap between characters, and you're supposed to put all this together to really just sort of master the level, right? Do as much as possible, as efficiently as possible, as safely as possible, and they give you these tools to really do that. But as you can see, some of the zapping worked a little bit more coherently when it was all in one continuous space. When you can be like, oh, well, Brittany's in the river, and you know, Alf is next to the river, so I can kind of orient. And if you kind of use your map a little bit more, and obviously this is a Wii U game, so the map's always on the touch screen, which should help. But based on what you see here, it's a little disorienting. So that's another thing about zapping. I think it works best when you can see all the elements on the screen, and it's in a and you can make that visual connection a lot more naturally and intuitively than you just have to memorize that one character's in one room and another character's in another. And I think it just makes the whole process a little smoother. Which is why, for my idea of Pikmin, like what I really want to do if I could make my own Pikmin game is I'd move the game to 3D, right? And I would let Olimar and the Pikmin run around an environment that's like a kitchen inside of somebody's house, and retaining the Pikmin's ant-like qualities. They'd be able to crawl up things, up cabinets, up sugar jars, behind objects, up faucets and sinks and stuff. And you would coordinate all of their movement through this 3D environment from Olimar's position. And even though you could probably still throw Pikmin and kind of have them follow you, for a lot of what I wanted to do with Pikmin 3 is you set Pikmin to do things, and then you just sort of like coordinate when they do certain actions, kind of like an air traffic controller. So if you have a group of Pikmin over here, you're like, okay, you guys go forward. And meanwhile, you're like watching in the environment for when the best time it is for your Pikmin to come and when the time for them to stop. And you like do a different, input or motion control for them to stop. And they're all like looking at you and following directions to the best of their little Pikmin abilities. And then in a neat way, it'd be like, almost like directing traffic or being an air traffic controller, but like both those things at once, where you're kind of like using your aiming controls to look around and understand the 3D environment, and then using your understanding of the hazards and the timing of things to coordinate all these different sort of chain reactions and motions and movements, and even the littlest things. If you just have it all sort of coordinated, I thought that would be a really cool sort of evolution and adaptation of what Pikmin is. Because right now it's top down. You don't get to see that much, and the Pikmin just kind of walk around some more or less predetermined paths. But once you break the game up into 3D, you see like real 3D, like full 3D space. The added volume, I think, would just add so much more pathing dimensionality to it, and your ability to sort of see across distances and piece together a more complex world space would be so much more effective than just like staring down top down and be like, well, there's a river here and maybe there's a platform and that you can only see so much, so you can only do so much. Imagine being able to see all around you and trying to coordinate like 10 groups of Pikmin that you have set up carefully to get X amount of fruits down. So I call that idea Pikmin 3D. That was before Pikmin 3 was announced, and it's still a really interesting idea. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basic idea. It's fun to think about Pikmin. So then another game that does zapping is the Legend of Zelda series, and oddly enough, the Legend of Zelda series does a lot of zapping. Like a little bit in every game, or almost every game, but Phantom Hourglass has a dungeon with it, Spirit Tracks has it as its some main element. Four Swords Adventure, you can play this game solo, so you can zap in between all the other links. Triforce Heroes, it's very similar. You can play solo and zap between your other links. Wind Waker, you zap between Medley and Makar and Twilight Princess. The Rod of Dominion in the Spirit Temple is pretty much zapping. So we're going to look at an example of that. Let's go from rough graphics to smooth graphics. Let's start here. So cover your eyes, Adrian. This guy's speaking French, so we're just going to mute him. So this is a boss battle, I think, towards the tail end of the dungeon. But as you can see, you're controlling your Goron half the time, and then you are also controlling Link half the time. You got to coordinate them and make sure that they're both in the same space. So Link is just, further down the screen. The Goron can set Link up, and as you can see here, clearly on the map, which is always available on the touchscreen, the Goron does one thing, and then Link can shoot bomb chews into its mouth from afar because Link can't cross this. Sometimes Link gets attacked, so you have to like this. So you have to keep track of both things happening, and you got to watch out. Like that's what zapping's all about. And they each can't get into each other's area. And this is one of the reasons why I love Phantom Hourglass. Neat little ideas like this, and it plays super clean, super well on the dual screen setup, and the touch screen is just super cool, drawing the lines for the bomb chew, and it's a great game. I love Phantom Hourglass. I actually like Spirit Tracks so much better. So Spirit Tracks takes this idea and runs with it. I don't have a video of that, so we're just gonna go and look at solo play from Triforce Heroes. So this is an example of what I was talking about. Guy's playing by himself. The other two links that were supposed to be played by players are these soulless demons. You can throw them, then zap your soul into the soulless demon to make it a regular demon. No, I'm just kidding. And you can see like how it's one by one, and you can kind of pick up people and throw them. And strangely enough, they made the whole game playable solo with zapping like this. And I don't know if they changed too much with the level design between playing co-op and solo, but that's quite a design feat to make it to where basically you turn a real-time game that's supposed to be coordinated with 3 humans and you turn it into one that's essentially a turn-based game, as you can see here. So this is just one player taking care of business. And right when he throws the other links down, they're still soulless. They call them doppels, I think. So good old Triforce Heroes. What a neat game. And then obviously we got some classic Wind Waker Makar control stuff. Let's just mute this guy because we like muting people that talk too much. Play a song, control your friend, the command melody, not medley, and you command this dude. It's Makar. You brought him in this dungeon, and you work together. And Makar is the only one that can plant seeds, and the seeds grow into these crazy large trees, which are useful for other things. And Makar can kind of fly short distances with this little hover, so they got differing abilities. And by zapping back and forth and working together, you overcome. There's the flying ability. Yeah, there he goes. Right, very reminiscent, even though this came before Skyward Sword, of the beetle in Skyward Sword, and how you can just kind of fly up with that thing for a limited amount of time. And then Link doing his creepy control dance. Just a classic example. So, in all the Zelda examples, I don't know if you can zap to Makar if he's not in the same room with you. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the limitations are from that. But the Zelda series does zapping quite a lot in quite a different ways. My favorite of these being Spirit Tracks, then maybe Twilight Princess, then Phantom Hourglass, Wind Waker, Force Words Adventure, Triforce Heroes. Fun stuff. So, I don't know, like, zapping between 2 characters is a really cool way to just give your game and your level design more complexity, right? So we all understand that, oh, you could just do it with a transformation. You go to a place, you play a song, then your character transforms, and then you have access to a different set of abilities. Yeah, that's cool, but zapping is neat because you have to pay attention to both bodies. And it may seem kind of strange that one body just kind of sits down and chills while the other one is running around, and if it gets attacked, it's just like, I'm getting attacked. So you're like, oh, that may be a little weird. And maybe a little video gamey, but in general, it gives you the ability to create a different type of layered level design, because you can control these 2 things, and where you leave them off matters. Which one you leave off in a particular area matters because they have different properties, and you can explore a lot of different things that ways of making challenges that are like one character can get through one way, the other can get through one way, working together they can get through a third way. And so on and so forth. So it's just a way of adding additional layers to your level design. And a really prime example of that, which I'll show here, is Cursor 10. It's an old Flash game. I wrote an article about it. Where's my article? Right here, Cursor 10 for the win. Give yourself a hand. And the basic idea in this game is, you click stairs to move up, and there's 16 floors. You try to get to the top, but you got to cooperate by yourself. These are switches, these are cones for points. This is a box you gotta click the number all the way down to 0 to open. These are how many lives you have, stuff like that. So I wrote an article about it. It's just a really simple game. It's probably still up on the internet, but we'll take a peek at it right here. So you start off with the one cursor, and obviously you click stairs to ascend. And then there's this challenge here, like, random stairs in a box, like this game sucks. And like, oh, there, you found it. And you keep going up. And then you try to climb the stairs right there, but you can't. So the stairs only appear when you hit the button. So you start clicking some points. Then all of a sudden you're another cursor. And then you can see your first cursor kind of following you around. And you learn from the mistakes of your first cursor. And now you're trying to do certain actions to set yourself up for the futures. And your first cursor catches up because everything's on a recorded timer. and then you get to the box that you got to click down, but obviously you don't have enough time to click down by yourself, so you need your third cursor, and then all of a sudden you start to get the real charm of this game. Not only is it exploring and seeing the results of your exploration physically or represented by this visual cursor, but the idea that you get to work with yourself, and clicking all the cones is how you get high score. And it's just a really neat, simple, and effective game. It's not quite Zapping, but it's an example of using multiple instances of your character that you can control in the same space, and because you're in the same space, you get access to new level design, interesting possibilities. Yeah, and all of them working together, clicking that thing down all the way, and when it opens, your cursors that were recorded before don't get to go into the thing, but it's always about setting up the cursor that you're currently playing with. So yeah, that's cool. I love that game. There's a sequel too, added more complexities, still basic, interesting idea, but I just didn't find it that. And it's like most video game sequels. It's like, yeah, you're doing it again. Good job. Cursor 10. So, yeah, that's about it. I think there's a lot of games out there that, I didn't bother finding them, but there's a lot of games out there that are playing with this idea of you record yourself once and then you play it back on yourself. In an attempt to layer with things that you've already done. I couldn't find the name of it, but there's an interesting indie game where you're playing with multiple human players and you're all inputting your actions blindly at the same time, trying to fight a boss. And I think your actions, when they get played all together, have a chance of interfering with each other and other weird effects. So it's just like, you have to sort of think about what your opponents or your allies are going to do, hope for the best as you input your blind action and see if it all comes together. I thought that was really interesting. Because, for example, one of the guys has a shield and he puts up a barrier. Well, that barrier can obviously block for your friends, and you obviously want to block the boss's attacks, but if you don't guess correctly where your friend's going to stand, and assuming you don't just say, hey, stand on the left, because you may not have communication, it's a guess. And all the mistakes you make, you're supposed to keep those in mind and learn from it, and then try to coordinate with whatever body language you have. And it's just a really neat idea. I don't think the game's out yet, but that was one of the cool ideas or examples that came to mind. But yeah, Zapping. Typically, I think you have to have a really controlled gameplay in order to do Zapping. Not too many hazards, right? Not too many crazy things going on. Resident Evil 0 is stressful. Pikmin, you got a lot going on, but you can control most of it, and a lot of it's about moving through space. Zelda, you got that boss battle was a unique example of zapping in a battle situation, but otherwise, you can imagine a lot of Zelda's zapping involves puzzles, right? I'm really not sure how that Triforce Heroes guy, let's see, manages some of the combat sections, but let's see if we can find some. Just popping balloons. Where's the combat? Here? You just popping balloons. Where's the combat? Can I go to the boss battle or something? You just place this level over and over. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So he stacks all of his links up to enter battle, and he throws all three on the switch because you need all three links there. And then he just throws the rest away, and I think he plays what looks to be a normal battle. Well, when the little dummies fall in the water, they take your hearts? That's cruel. Such a funny level. You better get your friends from... Maybe they just stay blinking invincible until you pick them up again. But yeah, you have to stack your characters up sometimes in order to get to enemies. This game is really cool. The tiered 3D-ness of stacking your links 3 levels was really clear to see with the 3DS's 3D effect on. And, using the Link Between Worlds graphical engine, it was just really neat. Cool. So yeah, usually battle situations aren't so hectic. I don't know if they toned down the enemies or the AI or whatever, but I remember some of these battles getting quite hectic and crazy, especially when you play some of the harder mission objectives on the same maps, but whatever. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Zapping. It fills me with a lot of interesting ideas. Definitely makes me think of layer level design, and there's so many different ways to do layer level design. There's so many different ways to mix and match these ideas, but for the most part, just being familiar with what other games are doing, giving it a name, and understanding the pros and cons is a great sort of mini lesson. And the more of these things that you learn, the better and more creative your ideas will be in the future. So that's all I have for today's episode of DO Live. If you liked the video, click like on YouTube. Otherwise, join us in our Discord if you want to talk, or just tune in next day, tune in tomorrow for another video, and I'll see you guys next time.